Hello, everybody. My name is Victor. I'm here with State Representative Sophie Phillips, and we are here today to be discussing the topic of homelessness. Hello, Ms. Phillips. It's an honor to have you here at McCain. I'm really happy. I just want to say thank you for coming here and doing this interview with me. It means a lot. I just want to start off. I just want to hear a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do. Just, feel free to say anything about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Representative Sophie Phillips. I represent the 18th District, which is like the Christiana Mall, Christiana Hospital area. I grew up in New York and came to Delaware in 2014 to go to the University of Delaware for environmental and marine science. And left for a bit. I worked in Yosemite National Park and in Carlsbad Caverns National Park studying bats and the impact of the fossil fuel industry on their populations. And then found my way back here after living in Florida, doing some internships, and COVID hit. And so I was at a wildlife hospital, so they had to go down to skeleton staff, which meant those of us that were new were not going to be coming in anymore. So I reached out to some of my professors from undergrad, and they said, yeah, come over here. We'll go to grad school at UD. So did that, got my master's in energy and environmental policy, and was able to take a ton of wildlife courses while I was doing that, which is really important to me. When I ended up coming back to the Miss Delaware organization found me. I had competed with them in 2017 and 2018, just like for funsies. And then they found me on the street in Main Street, and they're like, you're back, you want to compete? It's like, fine, like it's my last year of eligibility, like I'll do it. So ended up going to Miss Delaware and won Miss Delaware, got to go to Miss America in 2021, which is a ton of fun. Still have all my friends from there. We talk literally every day. We have since before we were even at Miss America. And I'm now the youngest state rep. I was elected at 26, now I'm 29, which has its challenges for sure, but it's exciting to be able to represent the young voices and be someone that people can come to talk to, that knows I'll understand where they're coming from. I'm also the first Asian American ever in the General Assembly, which is crazy to me. I expected at some point there would be someone who was Asian American, but nope. And my family's from India, so I have to represent basically the entire Indian community then and the Asian American community. And in Delaware, that's very diverse. Just because you're from India doesn't mean that you have the same culture as everybody else from India. So that's been a very interesting opportunity for me. I got to dance with some of the kids last year, and I'm doing it again this year, doing Indian dance, Bollywood style, and it's just been amazing. So I'm very happy that I've been able to, run for office, stay in office, and be able to represent all different types of people.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've really done a lot. You have a very impressive resume.
Thank you.
I did want to ask, though, you mentioned that you were the youngest state representative in Delaware. What was it like, because you said it's a bit of a challenge. Would you mind discussing a bit of that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a challenge in a number of ways. I would say one way is you have to gain respect from your colleagues. And when you're the youngest, it doesn't matter what degree you have. It doesn't matter what experience you have. They don't really care to learn that. They just judge you pretty quickly. And it takes a little extra for us to be able to get that respect. On the other side, too, when it comes to money, when you're young, you're just out of grad school, there's no way you're going to be able to find another job because everyone in Delaware talks. They know you're running for office, and they know that your schedule has to be really flexible. So it was really hard for me to get another job in my field while being in office. I ended up getting a job as a wildlife ecologist, which I still do, and I'm a coach for some Miss America girls too, so been able to get a little bit extra cash for that, but we really don't get paid enough as state reps, not enough to live in this environment we are in now. We don't get raises like most people do with, inflation or cost of living, so when it comes to my case, I'm the only one in the General Assembly that rents, everybody else owns. And since the rent keeps going up, it's really hard for me to even live in my district. So a lot of my colleagues just can't understand what that is like. And there is, I think, a lot of judgment that comes from that. And I think it's really special to be in that position because there are so many people that are in that position right now. So it's really easy for me to understand where they're coming from. And in the paperwork, it says, you're one crisis away from experiencing homelessness. Like, I know that's my case. Like, I'm definitely one crisis away. If my rent goes up too much or if something happens to my apartment, like, I know that I could potentially be there.
Yeah. I think it does definitely give you that kind of connection with people, because I know there's a lot of concerns with rising costs and all that.
Yeah.
And, you're a state representative, the youngest at that, and I know you have a lot of hopes. So, like, what are your hopes for, like, the future? Like, how do you hope to help in improving Delaware in the future?
Wow. So my background's in environmental science, right? So I'm the vice chair of the Energy and Natural Resource Committee in the House. So I like to do a lot of environmental policy related stuff. Right now, I'm doing something related to the Endangered Species Act because at the federal level, we're seeing definitions change, and we want to make sure at the state level that that's not happening and we're representing our state the way that we want to. So on the environmental front, there's a ton of energy-related policy that we're working on to try and lower costs for people and make sure that we're not adding unnecessary, new businesses like an AI data center that is going to cause, costs to rise crazy amount for people on Delmarva Power specifically. So I feel like vision then would be, everyone's able to afford energy costs. We're able to have programs that if you can't, then you can, get some funds to be able to pay for whatever energy prices that you need to, utilities that you need to for the time until you're able to get back on your feet. We have that program, but we've lost a lot of funding. So now there's not enough funds to help as many people as we could. So I'd really love to see that funding there. And on the homelessness side, there's so much to do when it comes to, rent stabilization and affordable housing and people who are currently living on the street. We were just going over this yesterday. When you want to get a voucher to go stay in a motel, there's so many restrictions on that. You have to be a family. So if you're a single male, you cannot get a voucher to stay anywhere. So you're most likely going to have to be on the street because it takes so much to be able to get any sort of help that you need, even basic help. Having a roof over your head is very basic. Being able to eat, very basic. So I would love to see just a whole revamp of our system that we have. I think the systemic changes are real from the bottom all the way up. And like this bill is the bare minimum that we could do. It's like, I call it the very immediate need. And at the same time, we need to be working on having more shelters that have wraparound services so that people can not just have a roof over their head, but also have the help that they need to get a job and to get that house for the first time. And then the real big need for the future is affordable housing to make sure that none of this stuff has to even happen because people can afford to live and they don't need to worry about staying in a shelter or being on the street.
Yeah. That definitely, that's really good to hear. I know Delaware has its amazing pros. There's also things we can certainly improve on, as you spoke, such as homelessness and worry about electricity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You passed the bill, House Bill 135. That was it. Are you aware of the homeless encampment that was made in Christiana Park? And do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So right now it's actually closed down. So there are a lot of people who don't know what to do because they're told they can go to Christina Park, but they're also told that they can't go to Christina Park. We don't want to see that. We don't want people to have to live outside. Like what the city of Wilmington could do instead of just having a giant encampment is make sure that people have access to shelter and people have access to these vouchers and other things that can actually help versus just setting up an encampment. Like that should be not even the bare minimum. Like that, I think, is a way to just get rid of people experiencing homelessness from one area and putting it somewhere else. But that doesn't help anybody if you're just moving it from place to place. And they just recently, before it got shut down, added bathrooms. Before that, there weren't even bathrooms for people. So you can see what big of a mess that this can create. So I think the city of Wilmington has a lot of work to do. I know there's different ordinances that are being talked about right now on the city council level to try and help with the situation. But I don't love the idea of just saying, everyone go to one spot and that's it. We're not going to help you with anything else.
I know certainly a lot of people were talking about concerns with the encampment, like stuff you said, like putting all the people in one place. I know Mayor John Carney actually banned all other encampments, so it was just Christiana Park. And is that another concern that you had?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. A big problem actually with that is there are people that were living in certain spots that don't want to go to Christina now because, it's overflowing. They didn't have bathrooms for a long time. There's no help there. So there are people that were living in specific spots, and you all have a paper about the pit counts, the point in time count. People go out one day a year to count how many people are experiencing homelessness. And a lot of people know exactly where the encampments are, where people feel safe. And if you move everybody and you say you can't stay there anymore and they're not in Christina Park, you've lost part of the population that you were trying to help. So I think banning encampments is wrong. On private property, yeah, sure. There shouldn't be any of that on private property. You already can't set up a campsite in front of a business or on a sidewalk. Where it is now, it has to be on public property, and you have to have, no laws against you being there. So the fact that they put an ordinance that bans that completely, it's not going to help. That is so the opposite of what we need to be doing.
Yeah. Definitely, it's good to hear your words and thoughts on that, because I know a lot of people have been sharing their concerns. There have actually been an increase in homelessness over the past few years. Such in 2024, there was 1,400 homeless people in Delaware, which has since risen to 1,600 in 2025, and that has reportedly been increasing as we go into 2026. I know, was that did you factor that into your bill? Was that a big inspiration, would you say?
So, kind of. We know that it's been rising. I believe in Delaware we have more people experiencing homelessness for the population that we have than the entire U.S. And those numbers that you're getting are most likely from a pit count. That doesn't say how many people there actually are, because there's so many people that are experiencing homelessness that are couch surfing, or they're in shelters and you don't see them. So I would take those numbers and think that that is the bare minimum of people. Inspiration, actually, my Miss Delaware teen, the year after me, her and her family have been experiencing homelessness on and off, and their children, the youngest one right now is 13. They started experiencing homelessness for the first time when the oldest one was 8, and so the youngest one was 6. And that obviously was a really hard time for them and their parents. And their parents both work. So we call that the working poor, the people that are working, but because of the cost of living are just not making enough to be able to have a home. So they were living in their car. There was one time when the youngest one needed to go to the bathroom. They went to a shelter and asked if she can go. Because of the family being there, they didn't want her to go in by herself. They said no. So then she went in her pants. This was winter, and she almost got hypothermia from that, because now she's cold and she's wet. And that's a little kid that's experiencing that. And you don't have one of these sheets of paper I could show you, but on this pie chart, you can see that the largest percentage are people that are under 18. So 1 in 4 people that they found were kids, which is crazy. That's really, really sad. So those two were definitely my inspiration. They're now in an apartment. Of course, the apartment that they're in has flooding. They found snakes in there. So we're trying to figure out, how they can get that fixed, but it's the only thing that they can afford. So it's been really difficult for them. And because I love them so much and because they're family, they really inspire this, and they come and they testify for this too, to say what it was like as kids, and also what it's like for the parents to be working and still not be able to make enough.
I know the personal experiences can certainly affect that. I know I've seen people, children especially. I know there's in Delaware, the largest homeless population is in the city of Wilmington. I think it was roughly 40% based on the numbers that the city was sharing. And the encampment was supposed to help with that. As you said, it was recently closed. I know a lot of residents were talking in the encampment about the hit or miss conditions and, like the conditions of the homeless encampment. Was that like another thing that really makes you like want to continue striving down this path?
Yeah, it's not safe. Anyone staying outside is honestly not safe for them. We want a roof over everybody's head. We want them to get the wraparound services that they need. The way to do that is to create more shelters with state funding. So we're not asking them to fund this on their own, but state funding as well. So we can start moving people in a direction that we want them to go. And all these people right now, if they don't have the funds to be able to buy things from businesses, like we want them to be able to do that. So you give them the support that they need instead of just pushing them to an encampment outside. You actually build the shelters and the opportunities for them, and you help them get the resources that they need. And then they become contributing members in your city. So your businesses are striving more. You have, people that are buying houses or renting apartments. So you have a number of people that right now could be adding to the city of Wilmington when it comes to money. Mm-hmm. But we're not giving them the opportunity to even do that.
Yeah. And I know, I believe you mentioned rising costs and stuff like that. The rising costs as well as the unemployment rate, that has also been affecting the homelessness population and increasing it. Has been increasing the population of homeless people. Mm-hmm. Do you have any plans or ideas that you'd like to put into motion to help with that specifically?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. When it comes to rising costs, especially of housing, we've been trying to figure out the voucher system to see if it's easier for people to get in where they need. And Tizzy Lockman, she's currently the majority leader in the Senate. She passed a bill last year that made it so landlords have to take certain types of vouchers that they weren't taking before, like Section 8, to make it so more people could be in housing. And once you have that, help with housing, you can start even thinking about the rising costs of everything else. Because if you're experiencing homelessness, the last thing that you're thinking of is how am I going to afford just the basic needs, but everything else that everybody wants to in their life, they can't even think about that. They can barely think about getting the food on the table. They really just need a roof over their head. So there are little policies that we can do along the way in the short term to be able to help with that. In the long term, it's tough too, because a lot of stuff is impacted by the federal government. So I know our congresswomen and our senators are doing what they can right now at the federal level, but it's becoming, more challenging for them. And part of the rising costs are also rising energy costs. So we've been trying to put more policies in place to help, at the very least, not allow Delmarva to continue raising their prices. That's through the Public Service Commission. So there's this whole other piece of this. But one of the things we hear about the most, all the things, is rising energy costs and cost of housing. So those are the first two things that we really want to try and chip away at so that other people can start affording, really good fresh food instead of just going to, fast food every day. So it's a challenge. It's a very slow crawl. I know we want policy to happen quickly. And when I was new, I thought, we can get this done. A lot of this is common sense. We'll get it done. But you don't realize how many powerful forces are against you in a lot of these. So we are doing the best that we possibly can with what we have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's definitely a challenge. I know people who, even have houses and jobs struggle with their bills and stuff. And what do you think, community neighbors can do to help, not only prevent homelessness, but, help people who might already be on the street or living outside? Do you think there's something, in a non-government situation people could do to help?
Yeah. So what I do, I have some tents that I got from Wolf Conservation Center in New York, where my mom's a volunteer. They had a bunch of extra tents that were barely used. I keep them in my car. So if there are people that I know don't have a tent or have holes in their tents or whatever it is that's making them even more unsafe, I'll give them that tent. So that's always a thing. I think a big part of it is communication, seeing what people need. So I think what a lot of people do is they assume what people want and what they need, but they never really ask. So oftentimes you'll be giving somebody, money when like really what they want is like a blanket or something, and like the money that you gave them can't even get them that. So a lot of it comes down to really asking people what they need and what they want. And I think that's the biggest help that a community can do, because it shows that you care about them too. And a lot of times people that are living on the street or couch surfing feel like they don't matter at all. And once you open up that conversation, you get to know people. One, it builds trust, and two, it gives them more support when they're going through something so challenging.
Yeah, so building that community and, just asking, talking, instead of just assuming,
Yeah. And one thing too, we all have the opportunity to vote. We have the opportunity to give public comment. I think it's important for people who are not in government to look at what's going on. If you're in the city of Wilmington, looking at city council, what ordinances are being passed, what's up for potential passing. If you don't like it, go do public comment. If you love it, go do public comment, because all of those comments get added up and they really matter. Same on the state level. We have people that come in to committees every single time and they give public comment. And I've been swayed by public comment before. So it's really, really important for everybody to, do their part, pay attention to what's happening, and if feel comfortable giving public comment or reaching out to their elected officials with their thoughts.
I think that is definitely important for more than just homelessness.
Oh yeah.
And as there's definitely been a lot of promises made to the homeless community as by the city, state of Delaware, such as going back to the encampment, promise of bathrooms and reliable food sources and social services, and there were reports of that not really happening. Is there any way, that we could ensure that these things happen, or that we can hold the city to their promises more?
Yeah, I think that's a big one, holding the city to their promises, actually showing up to city council, because there's right now an ordinance about loitering that would make it so, for example, if you're walking away from a store that you were standing outside of, you could have been there for 2 seconds, but you're walking away. If the police officer sees you walking away, they can say that you were loitering, and you have to show your ID and why you are in the area. So we were able to get that pulled for a little bit, and they're rewriting it. So not sure what it's going to look like now, but things like that are what messes people up, because now you're being arrested for doing nothing, for doing things that are perfectly legal, and then you end up in the criminal justice system. Then it makes it a lot harder when you get out of the justice system to now you're homeless again, and now you have even less than you had before. I think promises are tough. I think it's really not a good idea to make promises when you don't have the support already to back it up. We can always say what we want to do and what we're going to work towards doing, but as soon as you make those promises and you don't deliver on them, that it erodes trust very quickly. And you'll see a lot of people experiencing homelessness that, people say they want to be outside. They don't want to be outside. The reason that they're maybe not responding to you or to police officers or social services is because they've, tried. They've been part of that system. They've tried to get the voucher, and they've been shut down over and over and over again. And when you get the door slammed in your face enough times, why are you going to trust the system anymore? And random people will say, I went up to them, I tried to give them food. It's okay, so say a random stranger comes up to you and they give you food that's open and not closed, it's open. Would you just accept that food, not knowing where it came from or what's in that? I don't think you would. So why are we expecting people experiencing homelessness to do that? They are people too, just like we are. So treat them like we would want to be treated. I know on the state level, same thing. We try not to promise. We ask people to show up again during public comment who are experiencing homelessness, which takes a lot for them to be able to do. It takes a lot for people who especially are working and can't make it down during the day. So we try to do what we can to help with their work situation, to say hey, we really need them down here. They're not skipping work. This is what they're doing down here, to try and, get their perspectives out there so my colleagues understand. A lot of these promises are coming from my colleagues, and we try to tell them, if you really want to be able to do this, and you have to put money where your mouth is, have the resources ready to go. And at the very least with the Christina Park, that makes me really upset, because yes, bathrooms are promised. You also can't have a giant encampment and not put a bathroom. So I think the city of Wilmington is its own separate issue when it comes to homelessness, cost of living, promises that are made. That's a really, really tough situation. And at the state level, we can do what we could try to do things, but there's local rule. And when you have that local rule, a lot of times that'll get in the way of you being able to create policy. So City of Wilmington is its own municipality. So they have local control over that area. Of course, we can pass something that overrides that, but that sets a precedent and people don't like that. So it's a lot more complicated than we think. On the surface, there's so many pieces to it. And so promising is just a really, really bad idea.
Yeah. Just to sort of wrap up the interview, I just want to say thank you again for coming, letting me ask these questions, and coming all the way over here. Do you have any major concerns of like anything in like the state, any city in Delaware that you think would be a problem towards the hope of reducing the homeless population?
Absolutely. So many. I think one to shout out is the pallet villages in Georgetown, which are a fantastic idea. They have wraparound services and were created specifically next to an encampment so people would not be in the encampment anymore but have a place to go. Now the Georgetown mayor is saying he wants to put people on buses and ship them off. To where? I don't know. Not somewhere that they know. And that's so detrimental to people obviously experiencing homelessness now going to a place they don't know, but to, again, eroding that trust. So if people who are giving those wraparound services try to help somebody, why are they gonna take that help when they're hearing that the mayor is gonna ship them off somewhere? Like, that is a huge issue in itself. I think also the lack of funding that we have for shelters, and some of the shelters that we fund are motels. We had one in my district that had all the issues, county code issues, like roaches, bed bugs. There literally was like a fire started because of some wire hanging. And so we were able to get that shut down and talk to those people in advance and try to get them into a shelter that was safer. But as a state, I don't understand why we're funding vouchers for those specific places when we can be putting money into actually creating shelters that will help people and bring more people in and have those services so that you're not just putting a roof over someone's head, but you're giving them everything that they need as well. So I think the biggest barrier is always money. We're not in the best place right now at the state when it comes to funding, and losing federal funding is not helping. So yeah, right now it's a lot of figuring out how to convince the governor that, this matters, that this is a crisis, and that we need to be putting more funds towards municipalities to help them create more shelter for the people that are there right now so we can get people out of homelessness.
Mm-hmm. And I think that'll about wrap up my questions. Do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to add? I
think one, it's really important to remember with homelessness that there are a lot of different groups involved. It's so, for example, veterans are more likely to be experiencing homelessness, people with disabilities, children. We don't really think of people like that. When we think of homelessness, we think of people on the street who are like doing drugs or whatever it is, which is a whole other conversation itself because we don't have the services for people that are, using drugs or abusing alcohol. So we expect people to change without giving them the opportunity to. So that's a whole thing in itself. But these different groups are impacted more than others, and we don't really put a lot of emphasis on that. And there's some specific like veteran shelters that'll be out there to help, but again, there's just not enough funding that goes to these specific groups that we really need to be focusing on because we know that their populations are more likely to experience homelessness.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Phillips. It was a pleasure to have you and a pleasure to interview you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.